challengers. So welcome back, another video by moi. And today's video is going to talk about what kind of practices should I take, why should I take those kind of practices, and what is the best way to be in those practices. So as you already know, and some of you have been practicing at Samatva for a while, we approach our practice interdisciplinary, which means there are lots of different styles of yoga here, more so yoga asana. Okay, so when we look at yoga, the path that we are taking when we do these physical postures is called hatha yoga. The balancing of the sun and the moon, the balancing of the yin and the yang, finding sort of a place of non-dualism where we really are not holding preference to either, although we may be experiencing them both within our practice. So the physical postures in and of themselves help us to start to recognize where these sort of interplay with one another. So we have lots of different styles of yoga. We have an Ashtanga practice, which is going to be a traditional practice set to a very strict rhythm. The sequence of the postures are the same. And in those practices, it's really great for the practitioner to start to see the asanas develop and to start to sort of master the poses. We have something more in the lines of restorative yoga, where we're going to be on pillows and cushions, and we're going to be in deep meditative postures for a long period of time, learning the benefits of relaxation, getting into relaxation within our body to hopefully transcend the busyness of the mind and to find a greater sense of ease. We can practice something like yin yoga that focuses on the yin tissues in the body. The yin tissues in the body need to be exercised differently than, let's say, example of the muscles. So when we look at yin, we think of plasticky versus more elasticy. And the greatest sort of explanation that I find that helps people understand the difference is the yin tissues in the body, the fascia, the ligaments, the tendons, even into the bones, they're much harder. They need to be practiced in a little bit different way. So we don't go in and exercise them routinely, like stretch, like we would a muscle. Muscle will have some memory, but it needs to be exercised very frequently in order for that to become a more permanent experience in the body. In a yin practice, we can complement our more yang style practice with the yin, maybe weekly, but we want to watch that we don't over-exercise these areas because we need to have support in things like our joints, so we don't want to have our ligaments and stuff being too loose. So think of a plastic bag. When you stick your finger in a plastic bag, it creates an indent and it comes back a little bit, but it's more permanent. Whereas if you have an elastic band, you can exercise it a fair amount, and it's going to sort of recoil, okay? The muscles here would be the elastic band. The yin tissues would be the exercising long-held postures to get more of a permanent result. So the nice thing for the yoga practitioner is those more yang postures seem to unfold a lot quicker when they have more ease in the yin tissues as well. And things open up a little bit faster for people that have a little bit more of a balanced practice because they are being balanced. So when we look at yin tissues in the body, they're like braces. This is a really good analogy. So like braces, these are yin tissues. We put braces on our teeth, we give them a little tighten, and we hold it there for time before we go back to the orthodontist and we tighten them again. And then when we remove them, it's relatively permanent change. We might see if we don't wear the retainers and we don't keep up the consistent stuff, things will shift a little bit, but for the most part, they will hold that new shape. Same idea. So that's yin yoga. The whole premises of all of these styles of yoga, energize versus detox, is that we're targeting a certain aspect of the practice of our own physical body to bring it more into balance and into a state of health. But mostly we always have to remember that the postures need to be done with absolute ease. And on a little bit more of a theoretical level, when we come into anything that we do and we struggle and we force and we become aggressive and we push, the energetics of the experience gets all like, and it doesn't really unfold for us. And when we come into it with breath awareness, when we come into it with a very calm mental state, when we come into it with very attuned attention to the tiny little subtle details, things start to soften and shift, and things start to open up and blossom. If you have a rosebud, you're not going to start to peel back all of the petals hoping that this is going to become this nice beautiful rose. The result of which is that these petals are going to go and they're going to fall and die and wither away, and then you're left with just a stem. So same idea in our yoga practice. There's no need to force and push and pull. It's taken us 15 years to get this tension in our hamstring, so it's going to take us time to let it go. But the slow, mindful approach is going to be much more successful. I really encourage you to remember that there is no such thing as a perfect pose. These asanas will keep growing, they'll be becoming harder and harder, and once you find ease at a certain level, you're just going to introduce something else. Now you're going to start to bind. Now you're going to start to hold your fingers. Now you're going to take it out more of an extension. Now you're going to do it instead of on your back into standing. And so they always are going to grow. And the purpose of this is because the asana is not the goal. The asana is what can create the journey. So what you're really learning is what's going on within the posture, what's going on in all of the dimensions of you. How does the mind interplay, do the emotions interplay with the physical body? One, to create and hold the stress, but two, what happens when you start to release and shift the stress? And how do you best deal with those emotions? So when you, or anything, or whatever is coming up for you, it may not just be emotion, but when you come into a posture and your hamstring is really tight, it's really hard to get the message from anything else because this hamstring is so damn loud on the inside, that's all you're hearing. And so that's okay. That's the body you showed up with today. That is the practice for today, is how do I work and interplay with what this hamstring is saying to me? How do I start to fine tune and become even more detailed in my awareness to go, okay, so if I rotate my pubic bone this way, or if I turn my inner thigh down that way, do I find more ease in just the physical experience? If I breathe longer out until I'm really empty, can I feel that magic moment when the body goes and soften? And when you start to attune into that, you're falling more and more into presence, less and less from achieving a goal, and your practice becomes easier. And it's very important that you remember that every single one of our postures need to be done with ease. They should not hurt, and they should not create injury. So yoga injuries happen, but when we are being aware and we're being conscious, we're going to play with that delicate edge. And it's not saying that the yoga postures are always comfortable, but our job within that discomfort is to find comfort. So as we start to grow in our practice, as we start to understand the messages of each of the shapes, as we start to become more comfortable with the discomfortable, the confrontational stuff that's arising within those shapes, within the breath work, within the quieting down, you start to develop a deeper relationship with your body, the lessons that the body is actually telling you, speaking to you, and then you start to hear. You sit in the place of studentship, where you are willing to hear, where you are willing to listen, where you are willing to quiet down and attune and really get curious about you and partake in your life. I said yesterday in class this quote about slowing down so much so that you're bringing the mind into the same time as the body. And when you come into the same time as the body, calmly and mindfully, you're quieting down so much that you're telling your body you are willing to listen, you are willing to learn, and you are also coming into the time where your body is, which, hello, is where your life is. This is where you live your life right now. And that's super cool, because we come to our mat every day, especially in this challenge, to live and to really get into, because for so many of us, we are deterred from our real lives because the emotion has so much stuff that comes up. The memories have so much meaning to us that it really stops us from being able to even enjoy our experience. And so we want to get so good at being in ourselves, being in our emotions, even if they're scary, even if they're that we really start to know and understand what they feel like. Anxiety feels like this for me. fear feels like this for me. What happens on a physical level when I start to explore those kinds of emotions? And then can I better deal with my tendency to react to that place of uncomfortable feeling? And can I just sit with, and can I be patient in? And what can I adjust so that I can find more peace and more ease and more comfort and more clarity in the shape? So then what you really then start to look at is your intention behind your practice. What is the reason that you've come to the mat? What makes you truly happy? And instead of then trying to find these little small bits of happiness, oh, I got the brand new car and that's really awesome, but after a while, oh crap, I just ran into somebody and I got a bumper bend back here and I don't love my car so much, and now I've got to find something else to be happy about. You then start to recognize when you're in those moments of happiness, what the feeling of happiness feels like as sensation. And then what you then try to do is sit in that feeling. And so you can use your yoga postures as like a testing ground. Can I bring what it feels like to be truly happy to Warrior 2? And can I bring what this feeling of feeling happiness feels like to meditation? Or this feeling of completeness and peace and gratitude and compassion in headstand? And can I then understand that I can be happy in all of my experiences, even if they're challenging? And so what you are going to be given after sitting in these experiences of your emotions and being honest and truthful with them and working with them and developing those strategies to sit with, then you start to know what it feels like in the good times. And then in those good times, you can bring it to all of your experiences. So your happiness isn't fleeting. So your happiness is every day, all day. So your happiness is in everything that you do. And so I hope it helps you understand that when you create your intentions for your practice, you really are wanting to sit into the experience, and you're wanting to allow all of the details of the experience to arise and to surface and to be present and to be okay with those just as they are, without having to change them, but just to learn from them. And then from there, you start to have a better understanding, you start to have a better knowledge, you start to actually feel it in your gut, and then you trust the messages of the body, and there it gives you more stability and more roots for your growth. I don't know if that made any sense to you. I hope it did. It makes a lot of sense to me, but sometimes when I'm relaying it, it might be a bit too esoteric. So I want to know from you guys what you want to know, because I could talk about a gajillion things in this yoga practice, and I think all of them are very valid, but it might not be where you are right now or what you want to know. So I'm going to ask that you comment. Please comment in the bottom of these things, questions, anything that you have. You're also, if you have questions and you're on Twitter, you're going to Twitter this hashtag. And when you Twitter that hashtag, I'm going to see those questions, because once a week now, I'm going to do a Q&A, and it's going to be your questions answered. And some of these I might need to research. Some of these can be very like, I don't understand what to do with my thigh bone in triangle pose. What do you mean your sits bones? Okay, these kinds of things I need to know are your questions. Absolutely. So that's our next goal, is every single one of you that watch this, in the bottom, please throw your question. Not tomorrow, but the day after, I'm going to be answering them all. So yay for 30-day challenge. Yay for you guys taking the time out of your busy schedules to get to know who you are. Yay for putting your health and happiness and healing first and foremost, at least for this next month. And I really hope that this stuff helps you deepen your practice, deepen your understanding of the practice, help you just find more space, more time, and more freedom. Namaste.